Okay, so it's 101, and for sake of time, we are gonna go ahead and get started. Um, Let me share my screen real fast. Okay. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So welcome everyone to another presentation for the Learning Together Disaster Series. My name is Luz Sanabria Reyes, and I work for Volunteer and See. I am the Disaster Services Manager for the Commission. Today's presentation, it's titled A No-Cost Solution and Mutual Aid Partner. And we have Annette Girman to do that presentation. But before I give more information about our speaker, I have a couple of housekeeping items. This presentation is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Volunteer and See YouTube channel. Today's presentation is scheduled to last 1 hour. This includes Q&A. Save your questions for the end of the presentation and also add them to the chat box. Keep your microphone muted to prevent interruptions. Materials from this presentation and the link to the video will be shared via email. And with that, I am going to introduce our presenter. Annette is the Operations Associate for Team Rubicon for North and South Carolina. She has spent the last 10 years in the disaster space working in every phase of recovery. Her her favorite place to land is long-term recovery, and her favorite types of events are mitigation work. She enjoys the challenges that comes with the career as she's problem solver and enjoys the collaboration of others to find solutions. The two things she enjoys most about her work is building relationship with others who have the same heart to serve affected communities so that recovery can happen much more quickly, and seeing the positive impact that the work has on someone who is able to move back into their home. She has been married to her best friend Jeff for 33 years. They have two children who are grown. They are very proud of who they are very proud of, I'm sorry, and have two dogs, Sadie and Oliver, who are 6 and 7. Um, let's see, and welcome to Annette. I am going to stop sharing so that you can begin sharing your PowerPoint. Welcome. Let's see.
Thank you.
You should be able to share now. Let's see, stop. There you go. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Alrighty, let me find my PowerPoint here. All right, can everybody see my screen?
No, I do not see it yet.
No, okay.
Mm-mm. Do you click on that button that says share screen?
I did.
Hmm.
I did click that on, but let me go back here. Let's see. Let's see what happened. Yeah, I'm definitely hitting that button for sure. Don't
Okay,
know.
no problem. I am going to you send me.
Do you have the screen set for everyone to share?
Yes, she is co-host, so she should be able to share. Yeah, you are a co-host, so you should be able to share. Let me find that PowerPoint for you and see if I can share
Okay.
it. You should, I'm not sure why
It's
you're not
not
able.
right.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to manage your PowerPoint and this is the PDF version, okay? The one that I
Okay,
have available. So
perfect.
it's gonna look a little bit different. So let me share my screen. Can you see that?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank
So
you, Liz. I
you are
appreciate
very
you doing
welcome.
that. All right. Um,
And just tell me next when you are ready for me to move the.
okay. Sounds good. Well, again, thank you all for joining. Again, my name's Annette Girman with Team Rubicon for North and South Carolina. I titled this presentation at No Cost Solution and Mutual Aid Partner because that's really what we are. We generally come in at no cost to the homeowner, the city, the county, the municipality, the state, and those 211 forms are very important to us in order for us to make sure that that cost share offset is met. We know that emergency managers utilize mutual aid um, to assist in some of their projects. We like to be able to be one of those partners that can come in and assist them without a cost factor associated to the work that they do. Next. We are a veteran-led humanitarian organization that serves global communities before, during, and after disasters and crises. In the beginning, we were founded specifically as a veteran-led organization. We still are a veteran-led organization. However, we have quite a few civilians who have never been in the military that serve our community side by side. Next. And our vision is really to support humanity and build resiliency for vulnerable communities across the globe. It's critically important for us to work very closely with other NGOs, with state, county, and city emergency managers to make sure that work gets completed and it gets completed in a timely fashion to return survivors back home. Next. So this is going to give a little bit of history about Team Rubicon. Next. So Jake Wood and William McNulty, two Marines, felt a need to respond to the Haiti earthquake in 2010. They wanted a team of at least 8. Their other Marine friends declined the invitation to go. So it wasn't until a phone call to a friend who was a first responder who rallied the troops to recruit other first responders that they had their team of 8. Team Rubicon would not have been founded had it not been for those first responders stepping up and stepping into the arena. Next. And I'm not sure if this video will play. Does it look like it will?
It will not play.
Oh, okay. All right. This gives a foundation as to how Team Rubicon was born, and it just shows a little bit of the work that we have done in the past. So, but we can include that video. I can make sure that Luz has a good link to it so that she can share it. Next. So the work that we do is definitely the heart and soul of what we do, not only for our veterans, our first responders, our gray shirts, our civilians that heed the call to do the work that needs to be done in the field. But that impact is also on the flip side, helping survivors, making sure that that they are recovered fully and that and recovered quickly. This is dual impact. It's not dual mission. We give veterans, first responders, and civilians an opportunity to find a purpose, a sense of community, and an identity they can be proud of. And in return, communities, counties, states get professionalized volunteer support through all phases of the disaster at no cost to them. So this is critically important for us. You can see by the picture on the screen that our gray shirts really care about the recovery of others, and so we make sure that it's dual-sided and it's dual impact. And so our veterans and volunteers. Next slide. So here you can see a good portion, 52% of our volunteers are definitely veterans, 7% are active duty, and 41% are amazing civilians who've never served in the military, but want to heed that call of action to help their fellow communities. For many of our veterans, the transition from military to civilian life is not an easy one. Continued service through disaster response provides the elements of purpose, community, and identity that often are difficult to find after taking off the uniform. So we provide another uniform, the gray shirt. These intangibles are extremely helpful in creating a successful transition from military to civilian life. And one of the things that we do across the board is we understand those veterans who are coming off of active duty. They want to utilize those skill sets. They want to utilize the opportunity to use those skills in the field. So we give them that opportunity in the disaster space. You can see by this chart, oops, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you, Liz. You can see by this chart that just in the South Branch, now Team Rubicon is divided up between 3 different branches. We have North Branch, West Branch, and East or South Branch. We are in the South Branch that extends from Kentucky, Tennessee, down to Florida, all the way over to Texas. And so you can see that 2020 was our largest recruitment rate. That was during COVID. We had a lot of response efforts during that period of time. We were helping to set up vaccinations facilities, working with those healthcare workers to make sure that that happened. Our folks needed a way to be able to help their community. So we were not only involved in the COVID efforts, but we were also involved in food and supply distribution at that time. And like I said, the intake at medical sites. South Branch, as you can see, we have almost 50,000 volunteers within the South Branch ready and able to support the mission in the field. Next. And our focus really is on assisting vulnerable populations. Through disaster relief, it's been a long history of, inequality, unequally distributing services across populations. And so we really, really choose to try to sit in those very vulnerable populations where assistance may not be had, or the FEMA dollars will not stretch to meet all of their needs. So to ensure our services are reaching the most vulnerable populations, we do use the CDC's Social Vulnerability Index as one of our tools to determine where we respond. And it's essential for us to be able to do that. We know that folks with insurance, we know that other communities can recover, but when it comes to the vulnerable population, it's critical for us to be a part of it. The underserved communities are where we want to land because we come with no cost associated with the assistance we provide. We want to focus our attention on those who are likely will not have enough means or ability to recover. We rely on our sources of information on the ground from the emergency managers to know where we can best serve. And if the disaster is large scale or widespread, we can assist emergency personnel with dividing and conquering to do damage assessment to determine where those areas, those vulnerable populations are, and where we can assist best. Next. So what do we do? Let's talk about our core capabilities. Next. So in the very beginning, the mission of our disaster response operations was solely focused on response efforts. We did not sit in the other three categories. Over the course of time, we have definitely expanded our core capabilities, working in not only the long-term recovery space, but the blue sky seasons of preparedness and mitigation. So we've expanded all of these to meet more needs in both blue sky and gray sky seasons. So the mission of our disaster response operations is to provide timely, efficient, and effective deployment of resources to ensure assistance in the restoration of critical resources, mitigate human suffering, accelerate incident stabilization, and assist in the facilitation of long-term recovery. Like I said, we initially focused on just the response efforts, and now we touch on all phases of the disaster spectrum. Next. So what we do, let me spend a little bit of time here, because this is important for especially not only our government entities, but also for fellow nonprofits to know what we do so that we can best work together and utilize our capabilities to overlap theirs. So we focus specifically on chainsaw operation in the initial phases of things. When we deploy, we focus specifically on the removal of debris to the curb. We focus on chainsaw operation. We also focus on mucking and gutting out homes so that it can be ready for the professionals to come in and do the work that needs to be done, to the point of actually picking up the very last nail on the floor, pulling the last nail out of the 2x4s, and getting it to the point where that home is ready for professionals to come in, habitat or other services to come in and actually get that home ready to be built, to be rebuilt. Our route clearance, that is something that we have to be called upon to do. Our route clearance is heavy equipment operation. It's austere. We will, if we are called up to do our route clearance, we want to stage several days ahead of time and make sure that we are at the ready to assume the role of clearing for any type of emergency access. Expedient home repairs, that is, once again, our mucking and gutting, our roof tarping, our chainsaw operation. We can also assist with staff augmentation of the EOC rotation, so that we can give those folks in the EOC who have been there a week a break. We can come in. We'll talk a little bit more about this as I move further into the presentation, but we do professionalize volunteerism. We have people on our staff that have studied in the different phases of and the different functions of emergency management. So we can replace those functions, planning, logistics, those kinds of things. We can replace those folks to give them a break. Damage assessments, that's another thing that we are able to do to help the county, the city, do those damage assessments, large scale, small scale. We also have our own inside workings where we send out recon teams, but we like to do that with notifying the emergency manager, making sure that they know that we're going to be in the field. This is what we'd like to do. Where is it best to land? Where have they not been able to do a damage assessment yet? Volunteer registration center management. It's another one of our core capabilities, volunteer support for service projects and rebuilds, and then getting into the mitigation end of things. Fire, flood, coastline mitigation is key to the work that we want to do. It's a heavy focus of ours for 2024. We actually just finished a wildfire mitigation operation in Highlands, North Carolina. It was for a mountain retreat. It was 20 buildings at the top of that mountain, and they service churches. They allow for schools and camps, kids with special needs, veterans. They offer their facility for campers and folks to come and stay in their cabins. They also have a great kitchen space and area to eat and gather and work on projects together. So we actually had a fire started at the base of that mountain. The people at the top of it could not get off because there was one way up and one way down. And on that mitigation operation, we removed 140,000 cubic feet of tree and brush debris in 7 days. So that's the kind of work that we love to be able to do when it comes to the mitigation work. The other thing about our mitigation work is that because our no-cost volunteer support allows us to use to come in when no grants funding is available, but we know that area has called upon us, or the forestry services have called upon us and said, we really need some assistance here. We don't have the funding for it. Can you come and help? That was what happened at the Mountain Peace operation last week. We received an RFA to stand up and assist that property for future wildfire hazard and risk assessment. So whether there are grant funds involved or not, we certainly like to be able to come in and utilize our no-cost volunteer support so that those grant funds and those dollars can be stretched in other areas for that area. All right, next slide. Okay, thank you, Luz. So Team Rubicon has responded to numerous natural disasters across the United States since 2010. The flexibility of our organization allows us to operate in two distinct ways: tactical branch single resource units or task force. When we deploy as a self-sustaining unit, bringing our saw and tech kits to the scene, along with our trailers equipped to perform the work. So one of the things that we do focus on is we do have our own equipment, our protective gear, and we do our very best to try to find our own billeting and our own sources of food for our people to be able to take a shower, rest their heads, get a hot meal, get a sandwich at lunch. Sometimes we do have to ask for those resources to see, where we can land. But for the most part, we do come fully self-sustaining to an area when we are deployed at, the local, county, state, and tribal levels. Next slide. So this is Hurricane Ida. This gives you a good representation of some of the work that we do, some of our heavy equipment, our saw work. We train internally to our saw teams, saw 1, saw 2, proficiency cuts, AS1. We train heavily in that realm. We also are in the process of bringing on new members to our heavy equipment team for not only route clearance, but in the future, also mitigation operations. So this is Hurricane Florence. We did route clearance during Hurricane Ida. We cleared approximately 12 roads in Lake Charles, Sulphur, and Carlos, Louisiana. We gave access to 11 hospitals, 49 pharmacies, 36 fire stations, 19 EMS stations, and 13 police stations. And during Hurricane Delta, we cleared 8 roads in Jennings and Lake Arthur, Louisiana, removed approximately 21,000 cubic feet of debris. In Jefferson Davis Parish, there are 4 hospitals, 13 pharmacies, 16 fire stations, 12 EMS stations, and 6 police stations that we were able to give access to. Next slide. So it is important to know our core capabilities, what we can do, how we can assist. One of the relationships that we are building in both North and South Carolina is the relationship between Red Cross and Habitat for Humanity. And the great thing about that is where we can overlap our capabilities with what they do. Red Cross does a great job of coming in and doing case management, finding out what those needs are, being able to have a management plan to know just exactly what needs to happen to get that survivor back in their home. We can come in, we can gut the home, we can do debris removal, we can get that home ready for professionals to come in. Habitat for Humanity can come in. After that it has been completed, they can do the repairs, and we can backfill with our volunteers to support those rebuild efforts. So just knowing our core capabilities and how we can assist you in what you all do in the field is just an important factor for us. Next slide. So one of the things that we focus very heavily on is that we know disasters start and end locally. Every response is a local response. With what we do with the resilient community strategy is we look to build our bench with volunteers and our volunteer leaders at the local level, so that when a disaster happens, we are ready at that local level to send out our recon teams, to send out our teams to do saw and debris removal, so that we're efficient and we're able to send those teams out within a 24-hour notice. There are over 3,000 counties and parishes in the United States, and we want to have a presence in all of them. The goal of the resilient community strategy is to recruit, organize, equip, and train relief teams to provide immediate local response to more effectively save lives, protect property, and get people safely home as soon as possible. The vision of local veterans and civilians fully trained, organized, and equipped to respond to disasters in their own communities is the vision of the Resilient Cities strategy. This is a strategy that we've developed in-house to focus primarily on the objective, which is to achieve the ability to monitor, plan, and launch responses to local area disasters with the guidance and approval of supporting state, territory, and national tiers. To do that on a local level to get on the ground more quickly. Next slide. Okay, so why does any of this matter to you? Next slide. So if you are a government entity, an emergency manager, a first responder, a fire chief, mutual aid for your county is key and critical, especially if a large scale disaster happens. You as emergency managers and first responders are operating at a 30,000 foot view. Your task is great. You're dealing with life-threatening emergency situations. And I'm speaking to you here as a peer. I'm not a veteran or a first responder. However, I am a disaster responder, who has worked in every phase of disasters for the last 10 years. So what gaps need to be filled? How can we best be an asset to you? Because we understand that you are dealing with a 30,000 foot view and you're dealing with life-threatening situations, we can be an asset for you by sending out our teams to tackle those non-emergency situations, once again, at no cost. So being a member of the VOAD is a critical piece of that, because the collaboration that takes place is so important to us. And so in that respect, with dealing with government entities and emergency managers, this is the way in which that we can help allow them to do what they do best in the life-threatening emergency space, and allow for Team Rubicon to come in and assist with the non-life-threatening situations. Next slide. So one thing that we really are very proud of is that we're a voting member of the National VOAD. We can integrate into national, state, or community VOAD efforts to provide our services to survivors, once again, free of charge. We truly enjoy working with VOAD members. Their hearts are in the right place. Their hearts are where ours are, in wanting to meet those critical needs in a timely manner. Next slide. So these are some of our non-emergency community needs. These are all part of our core capabilities. Of course, route clearance, communications in the crisis space. That crisis cleanup is one partner that we work very closely with, and assessments, roof tarping, debris removal, all of that. Those are not life-threatening situations. Strike team strategic deployment, and then the EOC rotation as well. So why do we talk to emergency managers? Well, they're our primary source of information, the ground truth that takes place. They are a source, sometimes the source of the truth of what's happening on the ground. They can make official requests for our services. Once again, we are an organization that does not like to self-deploy, and we do like to make sure that they know that we are on the ground, we're coming. We'd like to assist, and to also work through our other nonprofit partners that are already on the ground. How can we help you? Where are you located? Do you know of another area that needs damage assessment? Are there other areas that have not been assessed yet, or other areas where survivors have not been helped yet? Next slide. So our impact and cost savings. This is an important piece of what we do. So let's take a look at how we have positively affected the bottom line of communities through the tracking of volunteer hours, resources, donated dollars, and corporate sponsorships to make the 211 form a part of our processes for that cost share offset. Next slide. When we deploy, especially this particular Mountain Peace operation that took place last week, the 211 was the first thing that was signed at breakfast, and it was the last thing that was signed at dinner for each one of our members of our team. It's important that we capture that information, the equipment that's used, the number of volunteer hours that the number of people deployed. All of that information is critically important. So this particular situation, you can see this was the Kentucky tornadoes in December 2021 and 2022. So we were able to remove 1.2 million cubic feet of debris. We captured 22,000 plus cumulative volunteer hours, and 16 demos were completed. That was a cost savings of 1.6 million to that community. Next slide. And so this is North Carolina. This is Operation Silver Sun. This was Hurricane Florence. So $2 million in value of volunteer labor, over 67,000 volunteer hours, and over 900,000 cubic feet of storm debris removed. Next slide. So professionalizing volunteerism. In the chaos of disaster, we have adopted professionalizing our volunteer services through just-in-time training, encouragement of NIMS and FEMA courses for all volunteers and our volunteer leaders, and for working with cities, counties, and states to exchange to engage in exercises that help hone skill sets and preparedness for our communities. We are currently working with the North Carolina Forestry Services on both ends of North Carolina on mitigation work, HIZ assessment, home ignition zone assessment, that is, training of our volunteers, exercise deployment, and participation to make communities more resilient, and in turn support the emergency management offices who professionally train to keep their citizens safe. One of the things that we are doing a really good bit of is participating in exercises, utilizing our volunteers as victims for hurricane exercises, active shooter situations, nuclear power plant explosions. So we have several of them on the books for 2024, and that allows our local municipalities to be able to hone those skills in those areas by allowing our gray shirts to go in and participate so that we can meet their needs. Next slide. So some of the FEMA training courses, we obviously we run as an ICS command structure. That's how we run our operations, whether it's a mitigation or in blue skies, or it's a disaster in gray skies. We follow that ICS command structure. If it's a large scale type 2 or type 1 disaster, we set up our own command and general staff, just so that we can keep track of what our volunteers are doing in the field, and how we can best manage those efforts. So making sure that our people are trained to FEMA trainings, ICS, and command and general staff is key and critically important to the work that we do. Next slide. So here's FEMA training by the numbers. So Team Rubicon, we might be one of the few nonprofits that actually does follow that ICS command structure. We train to it. We stand up command and general staff for our larger mitigation and disaster operations, as I've mentioned, and we encourage education of these practices to professionalize what we do on the ground. It also allows us to speak the language of our government entities and our emergency managers. 20,000 volunteer leaders have taken who have taken the ICS basics, and we have just a little over 2,200 who understand the expanded, advanced versions and complex incidences. So that's important for us. That's just in the South Branch alone. When we talk North Branch and West Branch, those numbers are generally about the same. So for us, it's imperative that we train to that. We encourage that kind of training, and we want our volunteers to be professional in the field and have that opportunity to be able to speak to emergency managers in their language. Next slide. So professionalizing volunteer service, it gives increased volunteer passion, skill sets, and allows us to meet more needs in the blue sky and gray sky seasons. Next slide. So how do we do this at no cost? Well, we don't necessarily go after government funding. We actually have amazing partners through foundations, partner and sponsor support. All of these partners are either $1 million or $500,000 donors to Team Rubicon. along with 56 other corporate and organizational donors of varying levels of support. The Mountain Peace operation that we just finished up, that funding came from a private donor who lives in North Carolina, who really wanted to see that mitigation operation take place. We have some remaining funds left over from that operation, and they were generous in the fact that they said, no, we don't want to take that funding back. We want you to be able to utilize it for another mitigation operation in North Carolina. So we do have individual and family foundations that do stand up and say, hey, we like the work that you're doing. We want our funds to go towards that. And so we are very appreciative of the collaborative efforts that we have with our corporate sponsors and partners and their in-kind donations. We couldn't do it without them or our amazing individual donors who help us keep this machine running, boots on the ground, and help communities on their worst day. And I don't think this will play either, but I will drop a link to Lou's. I will tell you that this series was not, it's on Roku. It was not Team Rubicon's idea. The gentleman from This Old House, you can see him pictured there. He did a story on us in Houston during Hurricane Harvey and saw the efforts that we did on the ground. So he went to the executive producers of This Old House and really wanted to do a series on Team Rubicon. And so that docuseries is actually on Roku. I believe you can also see it on YouTube as well. So if you have not had a chance and have not had the ability to see that, that gives a much better picture of the work that we do on the ground to support those communities and to work with other organizations that are out there doing the same thing. Any questions? I think there were a couple of questions in the chat.
Yes, there are 3 questions. Alfred Food, how do we ask for help from Team Rubicon?
If you are in North and South Carolina, you can get my information, and if you'll scroll up just a little bit more, my information is there. I can also put it in the chat as well. You can reach out to me directly if you are in North or South Carolina. You can reach out directly to me. I would be your main contact. If you need assistance on a service project, or you have a mitigation opportunity and you need more volunteers out there, or a disaster takes place and you want to work together and collaborate, we are very open to all of those things. So definitely reach out to me via my phone number or my email address, Annette Girman at teamrubiconusa.org. We would love to partner and collaborate with you.
Okay, thank you. Alfred or Al, did that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, I was just wondering because we've had recent requests from the state for someone locally here in Cumberland County to help out with one was clearing the side lot, because when they can't build the house back where it was. When they build back, they're going to build in the side lot, and they needed help with removing the trees and stuff in it. I know the Methodists, the Methodists or the Baptists, when they go out and they have to keep training on that cutting trees and stuff. And so the more resources you know about, the better it is in the end,
It is. And that is definitely something we do as many proficiency cut trainings throughout the year as we can, just so that those sawyers who have had their SAW 1, SAW 2, AS1 can continue to hone those skill sets. So yes, absolutely. And it does not take long for that list or that call to action to fill up with Sawyers who want to go out and do that work. So yes, please feel free to reach out to me when you see those needs come through. I will be more than happy to work with you on that and get Sawyers out into the field.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question for you in relations to that. How can local emergency managers or even at the state level can develop some type of MOU or agreement in advance so they can start utilizing the services of Team Rubicon?
Definitely reach out to me. We do have some MOUs in place. I know we do have one with FEMA. We've got another one, I believe, with the Forestry Services. And so, but when it comes to the county emergency managers or city emergency managers, that would likely require, just an individual conversation on that. A reach out to myself. We have an MOU with the Charlotte Emergency Management Department and the fire chief to do damage assessments for them. They have a real need to have other people go out into the field and actually do that. So that is one MOU we have in place. And we are currently working on another MOU to assist in South Carolina in some of our rural counties with EOC rotation. In some of the rural counties, you've got an emergency manager that's not only the emergency manager, but they're the fire chief and they own the bank down the street. And so they wear so many hats. So ways in which we can help them with that EOC rotation, filling those functional roles. That's another area that we are working on closely to build some of those MOUs out so we can be of true assistance to them at that time.
Excellent, thank you. And I have two questions from David Leonard. Can you discuss the comment on slide 20 regarding VOAD and mutual aid?
Oh, well, in regards to that, I can tell you that we were that some of this presentation was delivered to emergency managers. So we wanted them to understand that, many times they go to the county next to them for mutual aid. And in many respects, but somebody has to pay that bill. And so in many respects, VOADs and VOAD groups like TR and other groups out there could come in and be that no-cost solution to helping them with some of those needs as well, which it is critically important to not only their budgets, but also knowing that we can come in and assist them. We know that states are finding it harder and harder to manage the cost of, I just read an article on it the other day about how states are really struggling to try to keep up with the costs of disasters. And so to have the ability to call upon, nonprofits that can come in and assist with those needs and not have anything taken out of their budget and allow their budget dollars to stretch, I think is critically important. And there are some great emergency managers out there that just absolutely love working with VOADs because they know that the work will get done and they know it will allow them to stretch those dollars. So yes, I just think that VOADs need to be considered mutual aid partners in that respect.
100% agree with you. And I can say I love working with VOADs. I always say, if we at the state level are able to accomplish our mission, it's because of VOADs.
Yes.
This is Dave. Thank you, Annette. I appreciate that explanation too as well. And I appreciate the VOADs, all of them, and what you do for all of our communities. So thank you for that answer. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
And David has also another question in the chat box. It says, for the Kentucky response, did Team Rubicon receive any federal or state reimbursements?
No,
Wow, that was all volunteer. That was a lot. That's wow.
Impressive.
That's
It's
impressive. Yes, ma'am.
all volunteer. It's no, we don't receive any federal funding. We don't apply for grants. Now the only thing that we are looking into, because this is a new avenue for us, and it's an avenue that's of real importance to us, is coastline flood and wildfire mitigation. So I mean that I know our development team is potentially looking at some of those mitigation dollars, like even the grants that are $10,000, where we could utilize that towards a mission. So that's a possibility, but we've not ever gone after federal funding. It's all been through our corporate sponsorships and individual donors, and that's been a real blessing to us for sure.
Wonderful. And it's impressive because a lot of organizations are struggling to find funding, because usually the funding for disaster runs out, 3 years, 4 years after.
Yes.
So that is, I would say that's the blessing, that you have these committed funders and that you are able to support communities, with volunteers and funding from your
We
trusted funders.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Luz. Yeah, we have a really amazing development team that works very closely with those corporate sponsors. And they love to get out into the field. They love to see the work that's being done to help communities recover. And so one of the things that we are really focused on, we were focused on it last year and very focused on it this year, is offering those opportunities for our corporate, local corporate folks to come out and actually see the work that's being done and participate, put on that gray shirt, put on their Wells Fargo shirt, put on their Ford shirt, and come out and work with us on disasters and also on mitigation operations. So Charlotte is a prime example of that. We do an awful lot of work with Truist and some of our other corporate partners out that way. Bank of America, they like to get their people into the field and to be able to be a part of it. And it makes a world of difference for them to be able to see that work being done and be a part of it.
And it also speaks loudly about Team Rubicon, because funders usually continue funding when their money is being used wisely.
Yes, they can see it. They can see that it is being used wisely. But this is just one example. The Mountain Peace Operation, that funder gave us $20,000. That operation, we stretched those dollars. That operation was $12,000. So the remaining amount of those funds are now going to be able to be used for training and another mitigation operation in North Carolina. And so one of our core cultural principles is your mom's a donor. And so we're very cognizant about how we make sure that we manage those funds properly and stretch them to the best of our abilities. So.
Do we have any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you, Annette, for this wonderful presentation. And to everyone, I will be sending the invitation for the next presentation. Next presentation is going to be by the Center of Disaster Philanthropy. So please be on the lookout for the email to register for our next presentation. And you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, everyone.